Awesome. So yeah, welcome everybody. This is such a purposeful, intended time of the week for Amber and I. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, my name is Michele Brown. I'm a certified executive coach and talent management consultant. My practice, Into Action Coaching, has been in existence for the last 15 years. And after Amber introduces herself, I just want to underscore that this is a labor of love for us. Given these surreal, unprecedented times that we're experiencing and circumstances, we felt really compelled to leverage our time and our talents as coaches to provide these weekly Wednesday webinars as a forum to create community and to really just help, share and discuss topics that are really relevant to us. So Amber, I'll pass the mic to you and let you introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, welcome again. We hope that you are that you've joined us before, but if this is your first time joining us, you're in for something special. As Michele said, this is a labor of love, and we really put a lot of thought into coming up with topics that we know that our clients and that our community are grappling with. I am also a coach. I'm a certified life coach, business coach, and career coach, and I'm a positive psychology practitioner. So today, as we get into talking about breaking bad habits, I'm going to give you a bit of the science behind it and the way that our minds work and the way that that we can understand what's happening kind of on the inside so that we can learn to control our thoughts and our habits and not let our thoughts and our habits control us. This is a lot of the content that I focus on and that I offer on my website. We're going to share our information and how to get in touch with us afterwards. But today we're going to get into these bad habits. So.
All right, so we're going to start off, Amber and I, in giving you a perspective from a coach's lens, what a bad habit is and its sort of negative impact, what it doesn't do for us, but, unfortunately, sort of the science of what creates a bad habit. And then we're going to be focusing in on 3 particular bad habits that when we were prepping for this call, we said, you know what? These are things that we ourselves may be grappling with, and we believe that you as participants may be as well. So we'll be getting a bit more granular to what those 3 bad habits are. There'll be procrastination, a bit of time management, and then communication. And then we want to hear from you what other bad habits you may be grappling with, or what really is a big annoyance to you that other people seem to have. And then lastly, and this is going to be the pièce de résistance, is we want to do a coaching demo at the very tail end, probably the last 15 or so minutes. We want a willing volunteer to be willing to hear from us or have them share what their bad habit might be so that we as coaches can provide a bit of support in helping them transition it into a good habit or replacing it with a good habit. All right, sound like a plan? Did I miss anything, Amber?
No, you got everything.
All right.
Yeah. So think about your bad habits. If you want to get a little input on how to overcome them, then what you share, I'm sure, will help everyone else, because as Michele always says, your story is my story. And so whatever you're grappling with, I'm sure other people will be feeling some of the same.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. All right. So, let's just kind of dive in. And when we think about a habit, right, whether it's a bad one or a favorable one, it's a behavioral pattern. It's something that we do sometimes unconsciously and oftentimes consciously. But, again, the focus today is to really look at and explore what a bad habit is. Now, I'm going to let Amber talk about it from a scientific perspective. The view that I have on bad habits is it really ties in very closely to emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is, well, one of the elements of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So oftentimes, a bad habit or a behavior that has been sort of perpetuated and become routine is so automatic that we're not even aware that we're doing it. And in order to alter and shift and change a bad habit, self-awareness is the foundation. We have to become very conscious of, what it is that we're doing, or even be open and receptive to when someone is telling us that there's a habit that we're demonstrating that, may be annoying. In the write-up in the post, when we were sending out the invite, when doing some research around this topic, habits, or bad habits in particular, are sort of on a continuum. At a very sort of subtle or benign, it could be things like not screwing the toothpaste top onto a tube, but leaving it unopened. For guys, it could be leaving the toilet seat up, right? I mean, that's kind of benign. It's annoying, but it really isn't detrimental. But then on the extreme left, we could have a bad habit that is very detrimental. It could be pornography. It could be smoking. It could be excessive drinking. I mean, those are the things that are habitual, but, can really be very damaging to ourselves as well as our loved ones. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Amber, to kind of speak to it from a positive psychology perspective.
Sure. Just to the point that you made before, but we also recognize that things happen on a spectrum, and so it's getting control of that, the amount of what you're doing and where you're falling within that spectrum. That is really the focus of gaining control, because it's drinking is not bad unless you're drunk and it's getting in the way of your productivity or. So we're going to touch a bit on that as well, but I'll give you a positive psychology breakdown of it. So neuroscience and neuroplasticity is a part of what I studied. And neuroplasticity is the belief that we can change our brain with intention. So we have about 50% of how we think and who we are is genetic. And then about 40% of that is intentional. What we intentionally do, what our habits are, and how we form who we are intentionally. And about 10% of that is our environment. So although we can't control our 50%, we can control that other 50%, that 40% of our intention and that 10% of our environment and who we surround ourselves with. And so with neuroplasticity, the easiest way of me describing just how it works is if you've ever been to a forest, and if you walked in a forest and you see when someone walks a path over and over again, that path gets worn down. And so people continue to walk that same path over and over again because it's the path it's clear that that's the pathway that's there because it's been repeated over and over. So with neuroplasticity, the way that our neurons work in our brain, it's kind of similar. The way that we form pathways with our habits. And so the more that we are habitually doing something, it becomes an automatic response. And so because it's the easiest path to walk in, that's our easiest route, at least so we think. But here's the question, is that serving us? Is that pathway that you're taking from point A to point B, is that automatic response serving you? Well, if it's not, it's a bad habit. If it is, it's a good habit. And actually by routinizing our habits, it allows us to not have to put so much thought into, when we're able to get good routines and good habits, we don't have to put as much thought into certain areas because we teach ourselves and train ourselves to automatically do things that become less effort. And then we're able to focus our thought and our effort into other places. And so that's a part of what our goal is in working with our clients, and even just in speaking with you today, is to talk about those habits and how we not just break our bad habits, but the way our brains work. Because our neurons are firing, they have to go somewhere. So we don't just break a bad habit by eliminating it. And if you know anything about the law of attraction, you know that you don't focus on what you don't want, you focus on what you do want. And so how that comes into the way that our brains work is that you don't break a bad habit by just not wanting to do that bad habit, you replace it with a good habit. So then you start to train yourself for your automatic response to be not just, there's always a cue, a routine, and a reward. And so your cue, when something comes up, say, you're late all the time, so you have to get somewhere, then your routine is what you do in getting there, and your reward, you can then choose for yourself what that reward is. Like maybe it's you're rewarding yourself with I can, I won't use buy a drink because we use that as a bad habit. So I can read this book for 15 minutes if I get here early enough that I've got some extra time on my hands. So your routine, the magic is in your routine and looking at what do I need to change in my routine and my automatic response to get my desired outcome. And then what can I reward myself to motivate myself to continue to get that, what reward can I give myself to continue my desire and my motivation to keep that healthy habit. So we'll put that into application by talking about the 3 habits that we chose to start with. And then we're going to ask you all to chime in and give us some of your bad habits so that we can talk more about them.
Awesome, awesome. That was incredibly insightful, and I love the science behind it, the neural pathways. What's interesting is when I first heard about sort of, neural pathways, what I was thinking about as well are the grooves in a vinyl record, yeah? Because what the imagery that comes to mind that sort of underscores a lot of what you just said, Amber, is there's sort of 3 things that will contribute to what we do. It starts with our thoughts, right? We have 30,000 thoughts a day. How scientists have been able to sort of uncover that, I don't know, but research has indicated that we think about 30,000 thoughts a day, which means that in a lot of instances, our brain is in overdrive and our thoughts are kind of thinking us as opposed to us being aware of what our thoughts are. But things start with our thoughts. The collective thoughts that we have then contribute to a set of beliefs that we have. So a belief or a paradigm is nothing more than concentrated thoughts. Am I still on my, oh, okay, because it froze for a minute. So thoughts contribute to beliefs, then contribute to our behaviors. So that's why it goes back to what I had originally said, that self-awareness in terms of emotional intelligence in re-engineering our habits, our bad habits, really is about being observant of our thoughts, recognizing what belief that may have created, and again, then what behavior then is exhibited. And again, we're gonna kind of go into it in much more detail. So let's use the 3 examples, Amber, that we had sort of talked about. Let's start with the time management. Now, time management is the sort of this very expansive word, but I will share with you one of my discoveries. I'd gone through landmark education many years ago, and I was not very respectful of time. As a woman of color, you hear about CP time, colored people time, right? I kind of grew up with, if I'm 5 minutes late or 15 minutes late, there's an excuse, there's probably a good reason and rationale for it. Not really recognizing until going through that curriculum, I got really present to, how I was not respecting time, and subsequently it was not respecting me. So let's talk about time management, Amber. What are your thoughts about that as a habit, as a bad habit?
Yeah, so it's funny because that's one that I have struggled with over the years. I've been able to break a lot of bad habits, but time management is definitely one of my biggest challenges. And I recognize that my pattern was formed in my childhood by my mother, who didn't. She was very loose with time and would just kind of get there when we get there. And she never really stressed. She's very Zen woman, which has a lot of advantages, but it didn't serve well in terms of teaching me or molding me to be able to be good with my time management. However, as an adult, how long can I blame my mom? I have to now take matters into my own hands. And so when I became, I think time management is something that I really have struggled with, and I didn't really know. Like, a lot of us will have bad habits and we don't really know how to overcome them. And it wasn't until I found within positive psychology that cue, routine, reward, that it clicked for me. And I went, my routine is off. I have to change my routine. And I started to look at how much time it took me to do things and actually calculate them. Okay, I can't get dressed in a half hour. Stop telling myself that. It was like, I'd be like, oh, I'm working. I got to get somewhere. I'll get dressed in a half hour. Or there's not going to be traffic. We live in the New York City area. So like expecting that there's not going to be traffic is likely going to end up with the disappointment of getting somewhere late. And it was never that I didn't care, but it was that my routine and my respect to the amount of time that things took individually, it was that really kept me from being on time. And not until I made a goal of being somewhere early. And like I mentioned earlier, my reward is I'm a mom, so I don't get to read at home as much. And if I turn my camera around, you see my bookshelf, I have a ton of books. I love to read. So my reward to be somewhere early is to get that 15 minutes of being early to read while I'm there. And so that motivates me, like, I really want to read this book and I haven't gotten a chance to read it through the week. So you know, that's kind of how I've gotten to, and I'm still working on it. So anyone who knows me knows that I'm much better with my time now. But yeah, it's a work in progress. But it's the commitment to it and the repeating it that it becomes easier as time goes by.
Yeah. So taking that and looking to dissect it potentially within the constraints of, you know, the thoughts we have about time, the belief we have about times, and then the behavior, right? And if we want to alter it, you know, I can only speak for myself. Historically and originally, the thought I had about time is, well, I think you just echoed it. I'll get there when I get there, right? So I had a very cavalier, nonchalant thought about time. I didn't necessarily think about it in terms of how it could be detrimental for me, and certainly the impact that it may have on people. And subsequently, you know, it contributed to the belief that, you know, again, time didn't really matter. And that's what contributed to that bad behavior. And what I was able to do, now we kind of want to, again, we can only go by a bit of our own experience and how to transition that bad habit around time management, being late and not really respecting time, is number one, we have to think about, am I in integrity? And not just what integrity is showing up for other people. If there's a dinner reservation and I'm supposed to meet friends at 7 o'clock, I'm out of integrity if I'm showing up at 7:10. But that's the impact of my being out of integrity may have on other people. But I also have to realize, if it's just something I'm doing for myself, I'm out of integrity with myself if I'm supposed to be in the car at 8 a.m. to head to a meeting that's an hour away. I'm out of integrity in terms of my commitment to time. So that's sort of the relationship that we have, or thought or belief around integrity. The other, to Amber's point, is how are we really looking at the aspect of time? And that is, I've told clients time and time again, and this is a practice that I've had to encourage, is if you first have to determine what you have to do and when you have to do it. So I'll use the example of, you know, meeting a client or friends for something at 7 p.m. Well, you have to really be conscious and think about, how much time is it going to take me to get there? You start from the end and you work backwards. So if I'm supposed to meet someone in the city at 7 o'clock and I know it's going to take me an hour to get there, well, then I know by hook or by crook, I need to be in my car at 6 o'clock. Now, if it's rush hour, again, I got to think about this. This is where our thoughts come into play, being very self-aware. I've got to think about, all right, you know what? It's rush hour, and now I have to give myself, just for the sake of grace, another 15 or 20 minutes. So add that into starting from the end. I got to be there at 7 o'clock. You know what? Let me make sure that I leave by 5:45. And then if I'm ready to be in the car by 5:45, I got to think about, well, then how long is it going to take me to get ready? So it really becomes a bit of a formula that we have to be very self-aware and conscious of, and hold ourselves accountable and have integrity to those milestones. This is what is very helpful. It's helped me, and it certainly has helped my clients. And because when we become aware of the amount of time it takes us to do things, and we almost kind of set in our mind our by whens, an incremental by when, it absolutely can kind of help us turn the corner and turn the bad habit of being late to being on time. One other thing too, and I remember when I was in corporate, I had a client once in corporate that used to say, you know what, if you're right on time, if you're supposed to be someplace at 7 o'clock, you're really late. Being on time is really, quote unquote, being a bit early. So giving yourself 5 or 10 minutes to arrive. And it really will improve the perception people have of you. You know, we don't want to judge people. They are doing and being the best that they can be. However, when we think about the impression that we want to have on people, when we are managing our time and respecting theirs, that really leaves people with a really good impression. So that's the fix that we can get that gives us an incentive to kind of want to alter that bad habit into a good one. Amber, anything else you want to add before we go to the second one?
Yeah, I was just going to add also, you know, it's when we talk about emotional intelligence and managing our own emotions. I mean, how stressed, for me, I don't like to be late. I actually do care how other people feel. So I am so stressed when I'm late for something that it's like, why am I doing this to myself? Like it's probably more detrimental to me, the amount of stress that I'm in, than it is to the other person. So even just the reward of not being so stressed out is a part of it, because it allows me to show up and not come in screeching into the room, and come in peacefully and within a space of feeling, you know, feeling proud of how I'm showing up. So, yeah. So I just ask, is anyone else, did we touch, I'd ask a question in the chat, did we touch on time management and give you tips that feel applicable for you? Is there anything that we didn't touch on with time management that we could speak to for anyone before we move on?
And I know Anika had shared a comment as well, so.
So I am notorious for being on my own time. And Amber, thank you for sharing that. That was a function of being an adult, well, as a child. It's a function of my job. I'm a drug rep. I make my own appointments, so I get there whenever I choose to. But once I became a mom, I realized that I was modeling really bad behavior for my daughter, who just, she wakes up on her own, she kind of moves, and I justified it in self-awareness to say, well, I'm not stressed because I'm not in a rush. But realistically, I wasn't showing up and being present because I was always in a rush to get there. But I like how you turned it around and you said, okay, what would reward me for being there? I'm even late to the airport. If I get there right before the airport closes, I feel like I've done something. But I like the idea of rewarding myself to say, if you get there a few minutes early, now you have the space and the time to do something that you like to do that you don't get a chance to do. That was really, that was a turning point for me, because otherwise I'm like, well, I got here 20 minutes early, but I could have stopped at the store, I could have got gas. I have a litany of things I could have done that would have justified my lateness. So I think that this is all great information because it's very simple, but it's just a twist of a higher level of self-awareness, not to justify why I'm always late, because I can justify it to the moon and back.
Right. Yeah, we give ourselves. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Jewel.
Hi, Jewel.
The time management thing can go two ways, in your personal life and then in your work life. I went to a women's seminar and a lady told, the speaker was so dynamic, and she was like, put everything on a calendar. And ever since I started doing that, which this is my calendar for the week for my job, it is all filled up, tracking how long it takes me to do an estimate, how long I spend on each client, because then it's easier for me to put my time in. But I noticed that had helped me tremendously, where people weren't coming by my desk while I'm in the middle of doing something. I'm like, find some time on my calendar and then I can give you undivided attention. That was super helpful in my work life. In my business life, I know I'm coming, but give me a 15-minute window. So I always trying to work on that, which has always been a work in progress. since I took LifeSpring in 1987. So, but.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, Jewel. That's a great point because, you know, it is about managing our time, but leveraging our calendars as a way to do it, right? So, you know, one of the things that I have learned to do in my personal life that I've adapted from my professional life, and that is to put my appointments and even tasks that I have to do on my calendar, right? So that it helps me with the time management to block out that time. I mean, you know, this is not to say that we have to live and die by our calendar, but as we're looking to develop that muscle, that good habit of time management, and we want it to be universal so that who we are in one area of our life is who we are in all areas of our life, you know, we can use the calendar as a tool in order to do that. Yeah.
Michelle, you're so good with that. When I saw your calendar, when we were working together, and I saw the way your days were scheduled out, I was like, oh my God, I need to do that because you know, the time that we need, that's often people who have time management issues, the time that we need to do things, we just don't know how long they take. But when we block out time for them, then we're able to be more intentional and we're able to stop and say, okay, I can't finish this today. I need to move on to this because this is not the most important thing in the day. So I'm going to have to pick back up on this tomorrow and put time in the day, or later this week and put time in the day for it.
Yeah.
We had a comment for Dawn. I'll just read it. She said time management is an issue for her, even though I know exactly what I need to do to master it. I used to be early for everything, but now have now lapsed into my husband's schedule. I know better. So yeah, Dawn. So then we hope that we're giving you some things that help you to get back on track, because at least you know that you have the potential to be better with your time. And now it's just something that you have to commit to getting back to. And maybe a part of that is looking at giving yourself rewards that motivate you.
Yeah, and this is really good. Gosh, boy, we love hearing from you guys because it really just makes, you know, what we're talking about come to life. So as we are walking you through at least the 3 bad habits that we've come up with, and we want to hear from, you know, some of you what other ones before we go into the coaching demo. Be mindful so that this is a real practical exercise for you. You're hearing a lot of information, but try to be mindful in identifying 3 things associated with each of the bad habits that we're going to be talking about that you then are going to do differently in order to break it or to modify it and transition it from, you know, a bad habit into. So identify 3 actions that you're going to take, because we want this to be prescriptive so that by the time you walk out of here, you're like, okay, you know what? I got some real tips and techniques. And now, because of this webinar, these are the things I'm going to put into place in order to transition whatever, you know, bad habit you have into a good one. All right, let's move on to communication. All right, another broad one, but a bad habit in conversation. And when I talk about communication, I'm really kind of speaking to conversation. Is this kind of 2 elements. And this is something that I really have worked on. And I think the coaching that we've gone through has helped us. And that is 2 parts. In a conversation, how much active listening are we doing? Or how much are we in our head thinking about what our response is and really not listening to the other person? And then they call it subjective listening versus active listening or generous listening. Because in conversation, what is a bad habit is someone shares something about, I don't know, their day, what's going on. And before we know it, we're immediately sharing with them, it's about me. Yeah, girl, well, I can really relate to that because, and then we're off to the races. I call it like stealing the mic in the conversation. And that is a bad habit because when you're in communication, when you're in conversation with people, we honestly should be listening in 2 parts to our 1 mouth, listening 2 times more than we're actually speaking. Because in communication, it's an interpersonal dynamic, and we want to feel heard, and we want to hear. How many times, you know, have we heard or said to people, you're not listening to me? And my response to that is, well, you know, they're not deaf and you're speaking English. So yes, they're listening to you and they hear you, but what's missing is the art of generous listening. So I'm going to pause there because I have another aspect of what contributes to bad communication or what impacts conversation. But I want to pass the mic to you, Amber, and ask what your thoughts are around communication.
Yeah, so there's, in positive psychology, there's active constructive response and passive destructive response. And then there's, so there's the active, passive, constructive, and destructive. And so the way of being, as you mentioned, the best listener is to be an active, constructive responder who says, what, you know, as coaches, we often say, what I hear you saying is, but in regular conversation with someone, you're just repeating back to them, I heard you say this, and acknowledging what they've said instead of brushing over it and talking about yourself. Because when you know, we all want to be heard as people. And so in communication, if you go to relationship counseling, one of the key things that they'll have you do, because most couples struggle with communication, most humans struggle with communication, is they'll have you mirror what your partner has said. Your partner will say, this is how I feel, and they may go on for 5 minutes. And then you're supposed to mirror, the coach is going to look back at you and go, or the counselor will look back at you and go, now say what that person just said to you. And so then you reply back to it. And so it's such a healthy practice to even just start to do in your regular conversations, because you really start to recognize, wow, like I recognize I wasn't being as good of a listener as I thought I was. A lot of times we put our emotions on what we hear. And so we don't just hear what someone says, we hear how they made us feel. And so when that happens, we can start to misconstruct and say, well, you said this. And it's like, no, they didn't say that. They actually said this. It just made you feel this way. But what did they actually say to you without any assumption put on it? And so really absorbing, to your point, Michelle, absorbing and actively listening to them and then responding is a much healthier means of communication, because you're able to have a conversation where both people feel heard.
Yeah, yeah. And Anika brought up a really good point in the comment section. You know, we are isolated. So we aren't given the opportunity that we would normally have to be in the presence of people. We're using technology and phone in a way that, you know, has never been used to this degree. So practicing active, generous listening is huge, because we want to make sure that we really are hearing what the other person is saying. And what Amber is speaking to in coaching speak is what they call echoing. When we really want to extract and glean what someone is trying to tell us, because they may not be able to articulate their words or put their feelings into play, but when we're able to say, I think what I hear you say is, that is a checkpoint that makes sure that what they're trying to convey to us, we're truly receiving. And again, you know, it may seem a bit kind of clunky when we start to practice that, but with a bit of practice, we get really much better in that generous listening piece. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the third one, because again, we want to have some fun with what other type of bad habit you all may have. And the third one is procrastination. Dun, 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 dun. Right, when we think about procrastination, whoo, that's a big one. And I still grapple with that. I'm a type A individual. I am task-oriented, but oftentimes I will procrastinate when it comes to something that is really arduous, or there's a lot of ambiguity around it. I don't know what to do, or so, you know, procrastination is a hindrance. It halts our progress in achieving goals. So Amber, anything you want to add to procrastination?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of procrastination comes back to, again, that time management and that time blocking and being intentional with when we're going to get things handled. I'm reading a book now called The One Thing, and it's by Keller Williams, one of the Keller of the real estate company, and another gentleman whose name isn't coming to me, but I see Dawn is shaking her head. I think Dawn knows, she's familiar with that book too. And The One Thing talks about looking at, so you start with a bigger picture and then you chisel down into your day, but looking at that big thing in life of what's the one thing that you could be doing right now in your life that makes everything else easier or non-existent. So within your work life, like what's that one thing that you need to be focusing on to drive your career further? And then breaking it down to your month of what's that one thing that's the most important in your month? What's that one thing that's the most important in your week? And what's that one thing that's the most important in your day? And starting to look at it like that so that we don't do what we have a natural tendency to do, is put the easier things in front of it. And not get to that one thing. There's another book, Eat That Frog, that's the same type of thing. It talks about dealing with that item, that one thing, or those three things, first thing in the morning or when you start, and then doing your other things after that. Because especially working from home, we'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna cook some breakfast. Oh yeah, I'm gonna clean the kitchen. Okay, well, maybe I'll go rearrange my closet. And then it's like halfway through the day, and did you get to your work yet? So that's the procrastination, which we do so often. Gary Keller, thank you, Susan, which we do so often. And yeah, it's just funny because, we have to be mindful of it. It comes back to that point of self-awareness that you made.
Yeah. So here's a couple of things that we want to offer you as sort of tips around this procrastination and how to transition it and have it really not be an impediment. First thing is, and this goes for any bad habit, we need to forgive ourselves, right? We are doing and being the best we know how to be and do. And when we know better, we do better, right? So whether it's, not being a great listener, not being great around time management, and being a procrastinator, let's first acknowledge and forgive ourselves. Second is, when it comes to procrastination, it's a commitment to the task. It boils down to integrity. How committed am I to this task? Is it really something that's important to me? Oftentimes, type A, task-oriented multitaskers, we've got a myriad of plates spinning and a lot of projects that we have identified that we can do. Well, they may not always be in the top, frontier, high importance and high urgency. So commit to the task and make sure that it's important enough that you can set aside the time. Promise yourself a reward. It goes back to what Amber was making reference to. We are incented to do things when there's a payoff. And we want to be able to identify, when I get that done, what's going to be my reward? And the done doesn't have to be that the entire project is done. We may have just broken it down. I, have been trying to write a book for years now, and other things keep getting in the way of it. Well, I decided, I'm going to take this time, and now I'm just going to write a chapter a month. So I can't reward myself for the book being completed because it's going to take as long as it takes, but now I'm rewarding myself at least for getting a chapter done a month. And then also look to have an accountability partner. That's the fourth thing. It could be a best friend, it could be your significant other. It's ask people to kind of check in, or a person to check in on you and ask, how's that going? So that you don't revert back to procrastinating. And then, have that, identify what are the distractions that get in the way and look to have a remedy for what that is. All right, boy, these calls go by so fast. All right.
Where's the time going?
I know. We just have so much fun doing this stuff. All right, let's get back on track. So this is where we want to hear from you guys. And you can either unmute yourself or you can write it in the chat. What bad habit are you grappling with that you want to try to overcome?
We have a few comments in the chat that we can address as well if no one's unmuting themselves just yet. I
have an unmute.
Oh, okay. Hi, Susan.
Hi. My bad habit, I believe, it's definitely procrastination, but it's also I know this is broad when I say self-sabotage, but self-sabotage in the way of procrastinating in that I just am, let me see, I'm struggling with this right now. I'm about to launch something that I'm like feeling confident about and excited about, but I keep finding little things to be like, oh, well, first I need to, okay, well, no, I need to. And I'm like tweaking it to this perfection to the point where my bank account is like, no, you just do it now. Do it now. You know what I'm saying? And so, and for the purpose of like it being a minimum viable product, I think it looks great and that kind of thing. And I'm confident about the subject matter. And I know this is broader, it's probably like, I just can't get off the teat of my own like fear and just push launch. I can push everybody else to launch, right, Amber? I'm like, yeah, do it. I'm, coaching people on how to do whatever they need to do. But where it comes to myself, I am in my way. So
what's your fear, Susan?
I don't know what my fear. I mean, I think my fear is the fear of like, well, who's going to really want this? Who's going? The fear of, I guess it's the fear of failure, or if it's the fear of looking stupid. Like, I'm not really even sure. Because I think like what I've built is great, but I don't know what my fear is. And maybe I need to be laying on the couch and this is a one-on-one session. But
I got it. And you may be the one who wants the coaching demo, but we're going to do the best we can to kind of get you a little bit unstuck for what you shared with us. And I'll let Amber kind of speak to it as well. But here's a thought. To overcome the procrastination, I think, and your story is our story, first, it is to uncover what's the fear, because the foundation of procrastination inherently is some fear. Mm-hmm. It's a what if, it's some unknown, either I can't do this or they won't want this so it sounds to me that a place to start is to uncover what's beneath the surface in terms of what am I afraid of?
Yeah.
Look at it, right? That's the self-awareness piece. Look at it, confront it, and question its validity.
Yeah. Yeah. What am I afraid of?
Huh?
No, I'm like, what am I afraid of? I mean, I'm afraid of actually not having money in my account. That should be the motivating, push, go. But for whatever reason it is, it's like, I don't know what it is. I can't.
Okay.
No.
So from an energetic perspective, if I can just touch on that for a second, it's in the law of attraction, and with Esther Hicks, who I know you listen to, Michelle and Susan, I know you do as well. That takes me to the point that Esther makes very often about we get what we focus on. And so if we focus on the fear of not having, then we get more of not having. And so that vision board, Susan has an amazing vision board that she does. That vision board, which I know you're looking at right now and winking at it, that vision board needs to be more in your purview of focusing on what that feels, not just seeing it, but what that feels like. And focusing on what you do want as opposed to what you don't want, because that is the key of, we don't have a lot of time to go into it, but Psychology 101, self-sabotage is when we focus on what we don't want. That's how we sabotage. We start to just attract more of it, and then it's a downward spiral.
I mean, she also Esther talks about inspired action, where it's not necessarily procrastination. It's just like, I'm not inspired yet to do it. When I am inspired, it's going to come and it's going to be great. And I have those bursts, and even more so lately. But it's something there that is blocking, and that I'm actually saying out loud right now. So that's the first step, that I'm actually saying this out loud in an audience, and that kind of thing. So and to a friend, and so it's definitely something that I will uncover, and I got to do it like now. Like, I got to uncover that joint like today, because it's and then just deal with that. But anyway, thank you. That's a good start. That in itself is a launching pad for me to just to look a little deeper and not focus on that fear. But then
consider giving yourself a reward of when you get that money in your bank account, you will use this much of it to buy that or whatever. I can't tell you what your reward is, but that's just like a something that came to me. But giving yourself a reward that gives you more motivation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan.
Right.
Michelle,
Awesome.
we have some other comments.
One quick thing talk about a vision board. Mine is right behind me. I've been reorganizing it every day since I'm in my office that I visioned about in 2017. I'm definitely, I've done vision board for the last 4 years, and all my visions came to in 2019, and I was just starting to do some new visions and went on one on January 26th. And it's like, now that this has happened, my visions are changing. Like, what do I want to do? I think it's very important. And it will help us to break some bad habits. You want to put good things on your vision board so you can see it every day, because if you see it, you can do it, you can believe it. So I just think vision boards are excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm looking at mine. It's on my screensaver. It's on my phone. But again, and it's actually, as you said, there's a lot that's actually come to fruition. It's just a couple of things on there I just need to like get out of my own way. You know? Yeah.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Jewel. So we got about 10 minutes because we want to be really respectful, and gosh, this time goes by so quickly. So is anyone on the call that would love to volunteer to get some coaching from Amber and I? We're going to do a coaching demo and some speed coaching. It's going to be really laser. We're going to get right to the point, but we want someone who may really be struggling with a bad habit and how to overcome it.
I will.
All right, Onika.
I'll hop in.
Go for it.
So I have a new job and I work from home with a toddler. So it's a new job. She says hi.
Hi.
So whenever I struggle with procrastination and I have the time. She is an only child, but she's pretty good at playing alone. I wake up at 6 a.m. and I get stuck. And I know a lot of it is spending time and grounding myself. But I got to push, and I think someone said something about, working out. I was able to do that. There's a blockage I can't identify. So I know that there's a blockage because I have the time. Now more than ever, I need to be able to go and be productive with that 5 to 8 a.m. block that I have, because that's really the best time for me to be productive and to identify those small monthly, weekly, daily goals. For some reason, there's a block. So that's the space I'm in now, which is why this call is so beneficial.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, since it's the two of us and it's going to be really accelerated, we're going to sort of tag team between Amber and I. We're going to ask some qualifying questions because we want to make sure that we really are clear on what it is that you're grappling with. And then, we will come at it from a perspective of, in our experience. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start with, you're describing what the challenge is. What ultimately is the outcome that you're going for? What's the goal?
Routinized, methodical, very productive days in my work, my spiritual, and my personal life. So that's the outcome. The outcome is routinized, productive days that balances both my home life and my work life.
All right, so that was pretty expansive, but I'm narrowing it down. It's just to be productive. You want to be productive.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Amber?
So I wasn't being the best active listener because I was in the chat. So I'm just going to be transparent and admit that. But I'll ask you, did you mention, Onika, what is the core thing that you feel like is getting in your way?
I have a mental block that I haven't dealt with just yet. There's something emotional that I haven't set with.
I get on her last nerve.
Leia, there's something, can you hear that? There's something that, because I have a mental, like in the morning, there's something there that I'm not able, I have all of the time. I have those 3 hours in the morning. I'm not able to be productive. I haven't identified, I haven't set with it just yet. I'm procrastinating to sit down to get to the root of whatever that is. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it didn't answer it for yourself, but yeah, there's still some ambiguity around it. So my question is, I want to kind of, because boy, I mean, if we were in a coaching dynamic, we could really spend some quality time digging and exploring, but I want to kind of help you get to an outcome. So in terms of, you know that there's a block, the goal is being more productive. When you wake up every day, you said at 6?
Between 5:45 and 6 a.m. Yes.
Okay. How many hours are you dedicating to kind of your work? Because you've got homeschooling with your daughter, you've got work to do. So like, what does your work day look like?
I start my work day realistically around 10 a.m. and I work consistently. My last call wraps up around 4, and that depends on the day. Sometimes my 5-year-old needs to go for a walk, and that walk takes an hour. And sometimes I have a call that finishes up at 5. So realistically from 8 till about 3 intermittently. Does that make sense?
So what's happening from 6 to 10?
I'm floundering. I'm walking around the house looking at projects. I may or may not do laundry. It's not consistent. Amber hit the nail on the head by saying that consistent routine. Sometimes I do dishes. Sometimes I read something. Sometimes I flounder on the internet. I read articles. It really, there's no consistent time that I'm being productive, which is why that was key when she said that.
Okay. One last qualifying question, and then we'll get into in our experience. Amber?
Mine wasn't, well, yeah, okay, I do have a qualifying question. So back to the vision, we talked about vision boards. It's very important that we have a vision so that we know what the goal is. So what is your vision for what a productive day would look like?
I haven't established one. That's key. I have yet to establish what that looks like. I've just jumped into it. Everything here is like, I feel like you guys are preaching to my soul because I have yet to visualize what a day would even look like for me to even model it. So I can't model what good looks like because I haven't envisioned it yet. I cannot paint your nails.
You can
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're just going to bottom line it. What we hear you say, and in my experience, is you're missing structure, right? Amber sort of made reference to it. And if you're waking up at 6 and you want to end your day by 5, literally look at your calendar, and with business calls that you may have, create a structure day by day, even including how much time and what you need to do to tend to your daughter. Whether it's taking a break, having a lunch hour with her, taking her to the park for an hour in the middle of the day. In an hour, in my experience, is look at your calendar and create a structure around what you want to do and when you want to do it. And start there. And actually, I mean, yeah, having integrity with yourself to the best of your ability is, once you've created that structure and you're really thinking through all of the activities or the tasks that you already know are part of your daily, if not weekly routine, put it on your calendar and then dive in, and as best you can, try to stick to it. Forgive yourself if you don't, but at least having that skeletal outline of what you want to do might help you overcome that. Amber?
Yeah, very much so. And also, so to Michelle's point about the structure, in my experience, because I've had the same issues that I've overcome over the last couple of years with a lot of intention. I literally I have taken one of those whiteboard papers and stuck it on the wall and put the schedule up. So that is your vision. Like Susan's pointing to hers behind, that is your vision for your day. So not only getting clear about what it needs to look like, and it might not look the same every day. Like mine goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I've also allowed grace within that day of allowing some flexibility of, I don't want my entire day structured, but I'm time blocking from 10 until 1 is structured. From 10 until 12 is structured, from 1 until 5 or 6 is structured, and then I have some flexibility in between, and that might change on different days. And to also just reference Michelle in that calendar that I saw that she had, I did not used to be intentional about the time that I needed to read, and a lot of what I do, I need to read and learn new things. I block in time to read as well, and so that's a part of that vision, and then defining what that looks like and having it in your vision, in your sight, to actually look at it. So it's looking back at you like, girl, why are you still over there washing those dishes? You know? So, you know, I'm inviting you to be more intentional and to really define what a productive day looks like, and then put it up on the wall and be your own accountability partner in your space right now. This is a good time to form better habits because you're not as distracted because you can't go anywhere. There are still distractions, but they're not the ones of, oh, but I have to be here, 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 and here.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. That was hugely, hugely impactful. I like how you guys wrapped it. Goodbye.
You're
I'm
welcome.
loving your daughter right now. She's so cute.
She's like,
Yeah,
what about me? What about me? All right. Okay, guys, I know it's at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to close this up. So first off, Amber and I are so incredibly thankful and grateful and blessed that now for the 5th week, so many of you have joined this call, and this is a labor of love. We love doing what we're doing, and we are so appreciative that you guys are taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us, and certainly hope and feel blessed that you guys are getting a lot out of this. So we're going to be doing this every Wednesday now till, I don't know, whenever. So we've got a couple of other themes coming up. Next week, Wednesday, we're going to be talking about how to update your resume and pursue a purposeful career. We're going to do that in a 2-parter because a lot of people are kind of, thinking about what's next. They may have to pivot. So that's going to be part 1, April 29th. May 6th is going to be part 2 of that. On May 13th, we're going to be talking about how to leverage your personality style and how to effectively work from home. I've got an assessment that I'm going to be willing to offer people completely free that's going to give you insight to your behavioral style as you're working remotely. May 20th, it's how to start and grow your own business. So we want to cast the net out and start talking to entrepreneurs and business owners, or at least those that have a concept that they may want to turn into a business, because Amber and I, have been doing this ourselves, and, we've got some sharing of best practices that might benefit you. And then to finish up March 27th, we're going to be doing
May. You said March, but you mean May.
Oh, I'm sorry. May 20th and May 27th. Yes, May 27th, we're going to be doing part 2 to our financial security during uncertain times. All right, so all of this is on our respective websites in terms of your ability to see what topic resonates and register. And you want to talk a little bit, Amber, as we close up about our donation request or intention?
Yeah, you can watch the replays. We actually launched because people were going, oh, this is so valuable, and I want to share it with someone. So we actually put the replays in one place on a page that you can go to, I'll put it in the link in a second. I'm actually going to think of it, but it's not coming to mind right away. But it's on my website. It's on quartzwellnesscollective.com. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see weekly Wednesday lunch and learn. You click there, the replays. On that page, we also have a space for you to donate. We've gotten some donations already, and we had requests of, oh, this is so valuable and you're offering this for free. I want to give something to you. And although we're doing this out of the kindness of our hearts and we'll continue to do it for free, we do. If you want to donate it to us, we graciously accept. So on that page where you can watch the replays, there's a little button that allows you to donate anywhere from $5 on up if you so feel inclined to do so. So yeah, we'll continue to update it with the replays there. If you're a part of this webinar, you're signed up for our newsletters, where people who are signed up for our newsletters actually get more information. You get fuller recaps of these than we share with the general public. So look out for those emails, and also just let us know if there are topics. We don't have June fully scheduled out yet. We do. I saw someone talk about something about like weight and diet management. And so we will be talking about at-home workouts, and we're going to have some fitness instructors on with us in one of our earlier June meetings. But we have some flexibility on what we do for the rest of June. So please respond to the emails that we send to you and let us know what type of topics you'd like for us to cover.
Yeah, we're going to be sending out a survey as well, so that we can prioritize and go with the topics that are going to be most relevant to those that have been following us. So we take a deep breath. We wish you all a fantastic rest of the week. Happy Hump Day. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay serene, stay healthy. Love you guys.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Lots of love to you all.
Thank you.
Go.
That's the moment,